life-changing book. So our speaker today is the author, Anthony Brogdon. He is a native of Detroit. I didn't get a chance to find out if he's a Lions fan.
Of course.
Until they lost. But anyway, he's a native of Detroit. He is a historian, and he is the author of America's #1 Black business history book entitled Black Business Book. He's also a producer of business, and he has a documentary, and also he hosts an internationally acclaimed podcast entitled Strong Inspirations. And he's going to talk with you today about good Black history. So again, it's an honor to have Mr. Brogdon here, and we welcome you, sir. All right. Thank you.
Hey, we started on time too, didn't we? Yeah, I like that.
Tabernacle.
That's problem thing. That's all right. And so thank you for having me. It's 30 degrees back home. I had to pull this out of the closet. It was deep in the closet. I got 3 more months before I can wear this. And so that was a good thing. And then I rented a convertible. And that was incredible. That was sweet. It's hollering out the window. Because I got 3-4 months before I can even do anything close to that. But I'm excited to be here because it's actually become my mission. I found this out in some of these stories that I'm going to share with you probably in the last 5 years or so. And these are stories that they just don't teach in school. And I'm happy that I have found them because it makes me feel good. And I have, and let me back up. One of the things he mentioned is that I've done a documentary titled "Business in the Black." Now, when you're in business, you want to be in the black. And the red is not good. And there is no white. All right? So I did this documentary, and that came out in 2017. And with my own money, I took it to 40 cities across the country. I took it to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I met some people, and they invited me to come out. They showed the movie, and it was actually at the library that right down the street was where it all happened. And they walked me down the streets, and you could see the placards on the ground. This black business was here, that black business was there, so on and so forth. And they gave me a proclamation from the state of Oklahoma. Now, it's little old me, right? And then they gave me one from the city of Tulsa. And it was really heartfelt because they were excited to hear somebody in my respect tell the story. And it's not just their story. There are black business districts across America. I mean, you had it here in West Palm, we had it in Detroit, we had it in North Carolina, and anywhere there were a congregate of black folks, we rose to the occasion to support one another. And that's what those did. And so that was huge for me. And so I took that documentary to 40 cities. It even went to Toronto, Canada, and London, England. They didn't invite me to go, but nonetheless, the movie was there. And so that led me to, and some people had suggested, why don't you write a book about it? And so I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. Because I want people to hear these stories. Because ain't nothing wrong with black people. Amen. And I was in Philadelphia, and I said that to a group. And one of the ladies, she stood up, she said, I've never heard that before. Because we're taught and we're indoctrinated to think so bad about ourselves. And then some of us buy into that story. And so it's true that in black history there was slavery, as we know. And it's true that it was brutal. It broke the family down, it broke the education, we wouldn't want us to read and write and things of that sort. All that's true. But what's the other side of the story? Is that there were brothers and sisters who rose to the occasion. There were brothers and sisters who rose to the occasion. And I'm going to say it in broad terms. There were slaves who went to college. Yeah. There were slaves who owned businesses. And as we are in the church, let me give you some of the background. It all happened and it came out of the church. Because one of the first things that we did as black folks, we understood the power of religion and the power of God and being in our lives, and we developed churches. And so a lot of the meetings and things like that and all that took place, the meeting spaces were in the black church, even back in those days, as it was and what all that has happened and the beauty of the efforts of Tabernacle Baptist Church here in West Palm. Whereas I've done a little research, it started out in the sticks neighborhood. And it's moved, and it's a beautiful building. I was so impressed when I walked across the street, the nice stairs and the edifice and the pastor, he spoke so well today. Really energized me. No, I ain't worried about nothing. That plane gonna land tomorrow. And everything's gonna be all right. And so when we talk about some of these stories, we have to understand, and I put it in these terms. Okay, how about this? The 1800s and slavery, and I'm not gonna go further into Africa, but Africa too, is nothing more than today back then. And what I mean by that is, they were just people. And then there were other people from other nations that said, this is what we want to do to them. Mm-hmm. And the laws agreed with it. And because they wrote the laws. But then there were instances where there were enslavers who had compassion on some of their people for various reasons. And so let me give you an example. One of the stories is there's a guy, this is 1777. His name is Frank McHorter. Now, his enslaver was not a farmer, because not all of them were farmers. And we kind of was taught to think that they were. All of them, grew cotton and rice and indigo and so on and so forth. His enslaver was the carpenter. He had the carpeting company, the building company in the community. Because somebody got to build the houses, and they charge money to do it. Well, the guy says, Frank, I want you to go over here and I'm going to help you. You help me build this house. Frank said, hey, man, tell you the truth, I've been watching you for a while, and I know what you're doing. So kind of let me run that, over time. So man said, shoot, okay, then I don't have to do it. Frank got so good at running the business that Frank talked to the guy and says, man, I see how much money you're making, man. Come on, let me keep some of it. Because there were slaves who had money. They would allow you to keep some because you had to be able to buy some things yourself to provide. Wasn't a lot of money. So this guy allowed him to keep some of the money. Frank was so bad, he bought, and this is the other thing that I had not heard of. There were enslaved black people who bought their freedom. Now, it was the discretion of the enslaver as to how much. But his guy said, hey, I'll let you buy your freedom. Frank said, oh, I'm on to something here. He bought his freedom and the freedom of 18 other people. They call him Free Frank. This is late 1700s. So Frank bought his freedom. He moves away. He goes to Illinois out of Virginia. And he buys land. He's a landowner. And he is one of the first blacks to incorporate his own town called New Philadelphia, Illinois. Well, it's my town. I'm the mayor. That's Frank McHorter's story. And so I said, what? I had never heard this before. They don't teach this in school. And I didn't fall asleep every class. I'm thinking, man, why didn't someone, and I'm in an all-black school here in Detroit. Why didn't my teacher tell me about, Frank McHorter? Why didn't my teacher tell me about Mary Ellen Pleasant, who was really one of the first black millionaires out in Oklahoma? She had land, she had businesses, she was very wealthy, and her premise was, I'm helping other people. Very wealthy sister. Why didn't y'all teach me about her? Why didn't y'all teach me about Reverend Preston Taylor? Reverend Preston Taylor, who had a construction company. He built 400 miles of railroad from Mount Vernon to Richmond, Virginia. He got the contract to do that. Why didn't you tell me about that guy? What would that have done for a young man that says, okay, one day I want to be a business owner, and one day I want to, make a difference in my community, and so on and so forth. Why are you just teaching me about the whips and chains and stuff like that, and having all that? shown to me every day. Just tell me some of them stories. And then so many more people. Now, Madam C.J. Walker was very wealthy, but she was not the first. She was, and I put it this way, and I interviewed her great-granddaughter, the one that was adopted by her daughter, right? If you saw the movie, Alicia Wonders. I interviewed her on my podcast. She had $1 million of that time. But there were others who could have had 300, 400,000 that would equate to $1 million. And the crazy thing about Madam C.J. Walker, she worked for a black lady before she got started. A lady by the name of Annie Malone. And Madam C.J. Walker was 37 years old when she got started, and she died at 51. She amassed all that wealth that fast. Let me put some religion in it. You know, when you do business and you have some religion, if some of your premise is to help other people, God steps in even more. Her premise was, let me help these women have self-sufficiency. She would allow them women who sold her product, who ended up opening up salons, to put her name on their salon. So it's Madam C.J. Walker salons all over America. Sell my product, you keep some of the money. You know, I mean, that's the way she did it. Because that was part of her premise. I always wondered, well, man, I heard of Frederick Douglass. How did that brother make a living? Because you still got to make a living. You still got to buy something. People ain't just giving away stuff. You got to buy your food. You got to pay some rent. It might not be but a nickel or a dime, but you still got to do it. So I said, well, man, how did Frederick Douglass make a living? Y'all heard he had a newspaper, right? He sold subscriptions. You wasn't